Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 28th day in the 7th month of the 16th year of the Chanagi Timil, sitting in for the second king of Changu. Let's take our walk around the kingdom. Right now it is 55 degrees clear in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 85 for high today. Plenty of sunshine tonight, partly cloudy, low of 57. Father's hometown, Cheongju in North Pyongyang province of North Korea, or today North Korea. 62 degrees and light rain at the moment, overcast tonight, a brief shower or two this evening, followed by showers late, low of 59, and then tomorrow high of 68. It's getting cool. A couple of showers in the morning, otherwise clouds giving way to sun. And at the Chunibuk Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, 52 and clear at the moment. 79 for a high today. Pleasant, plenty of sunshine, low humidity. Dry brush will result in an elevated fire threat, it says. Okay, tonight clear at 45. Getting cooler at night. And then hold on a second here. Here we go. Okay. At the Liberty Rock RV Parking Campground in Limestone County, Texas, we have 69 and clear at the moment. High of 91 today. That's not so bad for Texas. Mostly sunny with a thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. 67 for a low tonight. Clear, partly cloudy and humid. And at the Korea Suncheon Palace, 73 and cloudy at the moment. A couple of evening showers, otherwise cloudy and humid. Low of 70 tonight. And then that's fairly nice temperature for Korea as well. And then let's see, tomorrow high of 81. Showers bringing heavy rainfall in the morning, humid with clouds giving way to some sun. I think there's something going on there, isn't there? Oh, there's some. Okay. There are 3 typhoons right now in the Pacific, but none of them are affecting the Korean Peninsula just yet. Right. So anyway, heavy rainfall tomorrow. 72 and light rain at the Gunma Palaces in Japan. And let's see here. 66 tonight is the low, rain and drizzle this evening, otherwise overcast. And then tomorrow, cloudy and humid, a little rain in the afternoon, high of 75. And at Ilan property in Taiwan, it is currently 84, and heavy rain, okay, going on right now. And clouds breaking, warm tonight, getting down to 79. Tomorrow, high of 96, says the subtropics. Yes, mostly cloudy, hot and humid. A thunderstorm or 2 in the afternoon. Okay, heavy rain right now. Let's go here then to Father's Word. And let's see where we are today. We're okay. We're in the book on blessed families. Let's see here. Let me put some light on this. Okay. So the base, Kiji, Father often talked about or used the word base, Kiji, which is like a military base, not like a base, but a military base. So here, Father's talking about the base for peace, the base for peace, and so he's of course this is the paragraph coming from a longer speech, and Father's sort of connecting to the previous paragraph, which we don't have. So he says that is true with the base for peace, and also, and then the kingdom of heaven on earth, kingdom of heaven in heaven, and everything else will be extended from love, will happen from love. What kind of love? Is it the love of man, the love of the woman? Uh, is it the love of a man and woman combined? It is the combined love. So where do these two loves combine? Do they combine on the face, on at the end of our fingers? Uh, they combine at the convex and concave. You might have guessed the answer to that. Yes, combining our love at the convex and concave. Okay. Okay. I don't think I need to explain about that. All right then. So yeah. So I see that the Hak Ja Han situation is making the rounds in the English language press as well now. And Newt Gingrich apparently is shocked or something. The Family Federation has for a while now, for 10 years or so, been sort of marketing Hak Ja Han as the mother of peace, mother of peace. Of course, that is not the case. And a few minutes ago, I got this email from, what's this guy's name? Hayashi Kenshu, is that it? Is that the name? Let me just check. Anyway, I got an email from someone, and it gives a link to, maybe some of you got it as well. It gives a link to a video by Jesse Edwards. And actually, I saw this video before I got the email. In fact, I saw the video yesterday and before the King's Report. And I was thinking of talking about the King's Report, but I decided not to. I decided it wasn't really worth it. But Jesse Edwards has a video to save Mother Han. And I chuckle because he starts out the video saying, "Yeah, okay, save Mother Han and all that." So I'm watching, I'm listening, and I'm thinking, okay, so what is the call to action here? Should we pray? Should we donate? Should we demonstrate? But then in the middle of the video, he makes a hard turn towards praising Preston Moon. Oh, so the title of the video is to save Hak Ja Han, but it turns out that I don't know what's the purpose of the video. Oh, Jesse, he has a history with the king as well. Um, when I came here in 2000, when I came to the king in 2014, in end of June 2014, he was working with the king, and he must help. He must help Hyungjinim and Kukjinim, and so he said he was following father's instructions to come help the king. That was in the middle of 2014. But then I think he sort of and by the way, the king and Kukjinim helped him a great deal, I would say, financially, so that he could do that. But then he started drifting away, and pretty soon, one senior member of the Family Federation came to visit him a few times, and before you know it, he drifted away towards them. And I thought he was doing well with them, but now I see that he has now apparently drifted again. And based on the video, I would say that he's drifted into Preston's camp. In the video, if you watch the video towards the middle, he starts talking about how Preston is the best person to carry on True Father's vision. Okay. All righty then. And when the Family Federation came to sort of influence him to go into them, uh, the king did not, and I did not, and no one here tried to stop them. And the reason is the same policy that we have with anytime people come to try and influence people in our faith community away and into another faith community. Um, I always feel that if anyone is foolish enough to follow, to be convinced by that, then in my opinion, it's quite foolish for them to leave the second king because, hey, listen, we're working with the son of Jesus, basically. I mean, what's better than that? The not only that, but the anointing and go somewhere else. That's on them, and people have come. There are various groups. A number of people have decided that they are the actual true parents now. People to try and get our people to succumb to this effort and go with them. And in my opinion, our faith community is stronger as a result of our losing these people who obviously have a weak faith, and so we're not really contributing that much to our community in the first place. So anyway, Jesse. I mean, where is his next stop? I wonder. Where is his next stop when they stop paying him? Hmm. Um, so anyway, I see that it's English language press. The Korean press today is sort of focusing on the fact that the one of the special prosecutors, and there are several operating right now parallel to each other. One of the special prosecutors got a hold of a membership list of the Family Federation, plus a membership list of the Conservative Party, all right, which is in the minority now in the legislature. And they compared the two, and they found that there were 110,000, some reports say 120,000, saying that, first of all, they're saying that Family Federation has a membership of 1.2 million in South Korea. There are some rumors that you just want to let them fly. Okay, I guess we're not going to sue anybody over that. If someone wants to, if the media wants to say that we have 1.2, if the Family Federation, when the father had 1.2 million members in South Korea, okay. Oh, and even and out of 1.2 million, 120,000 are members of the Conservative Party. They say so. The numbers seem to be a little bit, but no. Let's let it lie. Let's let this rumor fly. let's not let's not discourage them at all. Yes. Okay. Uh, anyway, that's the newest. And also, it turns out that one of the allegations against Hak Jahan right now is, I guess the English word would be embezzlement or misallocation of church funds. This comes partly from the fact that she's using church money to pay for her lawyers, which she has admitted to. And during the questioning by the special counsel, she was asked, how are you paying for your lawyers? And she said, oh, I'm using church funds. And she freely admitted to it without realizing that this is actually against the law. So anyway, I guess she wasn't briefed on that before she went in there. Okay. All right. So um, Yeah, so right now this is Friday, so we're waiting for Monday to come. And on Monday, there will be a court that will look at the prosecution's special prosecutor's application for a warrant of detainment. I see that the Western press is describing this as a arrest warrant, uh, and because I guess there isn't a distinction in the West between the two, but in Korea there is a distinction between uh, arrest detainment and or arrest warrant and detainment warrant. So anyway, right now the prosecutor wants to detain her, not arrest her, and detainment is probably a minimum of 30 days usually, and it can last until the trial takes place, whenever that might be. And she has not even been indicted yet. And Yoon Yong-ho, the former um, director of world missions, of course, is in jail right now under a warrant of detainment. All right, so we will see what we shall see come Monday on that. Not getting here we go. All right, so let's look at what's happening around the world. A lot of riots and protests and demonstrations going on right now, and I guess it's not surprising that at this sort of a very sort of important, I would say, kind of a watershed moment in the providence. It's not surprising that the external world is also in a kind of a watershed moment in many places. Um, President Trump, of course, is sending National Guard into cities to combat crime there in places. And then I want to first look at France and see what's going on there. Of course, the British had their sort of Unite the Kingdom demonstration, which had a very, very large crowd, millions, or perhaps, I don't know, but a huge crowd there in United Kingdom. So kind of a watershed moment in the UK, but also maybe France, of course, is always, all right, it's not uncommon to see France demonstrating, but this seems to be different here because right now they're demonstrating against uh, austerity measures aimed at reducing the public debt. And the public debt, of course, not only in France, but basically almost, I would say, every country in the world, well, most countries anyway, not every country, but most countries in the world, there is a huge public debt on the part of the government. And it's because of the fiat currency system, which, of course, was created especially after 1971, when when um, President Nixon took the United States. Well, when he closed the gold window, I guess I should say. I was about to say took the U.S. off the gold standard, but that was kind of a process that began already uh, earlier in the 20th century. But here, so all sorts of austerity measures are being implemented around the world, where governments are beginning to say, "Hey, we cannot do this anymore," and that's what's happening in France. But people don't like it because people do not like austerity. They want to keep receiving what they're getting. All right, hundreds of thousands of workers have taken part uh, in strike action across France on Thursday after trade unions called for a day of protest against budget cuts. Organizers said 1 million people turned out, while the Interior Ministry put that number at 500,000, with 80,000 police officers deployed. Scuffles were reported in the cities of Lyon and I don't know if I know how to pronounce that second name. And in Paris, small scale clashes broke out between police and protesters. Officers in riot gear used tear gas and shields to disperse crowds in the center of the capital after some protesters damaged a small number of businesses and buildings. The strike comes barely a week after this guy, a close ally of President Macron, was appointed prime minister following the toppling of the previous prime minister. Public transport was heavily disrupted on Thursday, with many metro lines in Paris reported shut, while protesters blocked roads and streets in major cities across France. Students gathered in front of schools and universities in the capital and beyond, blocking entrances and chanting slogans. Around a third of teachers walked out. Pharmacists were also adhering to the strike action in droves, with 98% of pharmacies expected to stay closed. More than 300 people were detained across France, the Interior Ministry said. Unions have called for more spending on public services, higher taxes on the wealthy, and for the budget cuts outlined by the short-lived government to be axed. So, and I noticed that I noticed that just before it came on that President Putin in Russia is talking about possibly raising taxes, and he's saying that, oh, look, the United States also previously during the wars raised taxes on its rich, and so I'm thinking of raising taxes on the rich. And of course, he's going to say, oh no, don't worry, it's just on the rich, but it's all part of this fiat system that is uh, coming to an end, and we don't know when it's going to come to an end or crashing down, or whether it's going to happen in a whimper or whatever. But clearly, there's an urgent need for a new financial system where the governments cannot just keep on printing and printing and printing and creating new money out of nothing, new money out of nothing, new money out of nothing. And not only that, but when the system gets to a point where it starts to crash, and banks are become insolvent, and people's money is disappearing, the banks get saved, and the banks get bailed out, and the people who caused the crash don't take responsibility. But then the middle class and the lower income people, they suffer because they lose their jobs, they lose their homes, like happened during the housing crisis in the United States in 2008, and also what's happened in the Asian financial crisis in Korea and in Thailand and in other Asian countries, 1997, 1998. A lot of businesses were launched, and a lot of there's a movie, actually, a Korean movie out about that situation that is really a tearjerker movie that um, that describes what happened in 1997, 1998, and it was a national tragedy. Um, and what happened then was that the government called on people to voluntarily donate all their gold, to bring all their gold, to donate it, and Koreans, being a very patriotic people, did exactly that, right? Um, and and now these, so 1998, 2008, so these uh, situations seem to be happening every 10 to 20 years, and eventually it's just going to get to the point where banks or anything else. And right now, we can see that 80,000 French police were deployed, which means that the government can still afford to pay 80,000 police. But what happens when the government gets to the point where they say, well, we cannot pay our police, we cannot pay our soldiers? Then that is when the country collapses. And so that was France. And then I want to also look at Ecuador here. Ecuador here, violent clashes. As diesel price hikes. So the government has been subsidizing the price of diesel fuel until now, and now they say, okay, well, we can't do it anymore. And so now violent protests have broken out, and there's a state of emergency, and so forth and so on. And so that's what's happening there. Here, Ecuador's president on Tuesday implemented a 60-day state of emergency in an attempt to quell massive protests that broke out following his surprise removal of a diesel subsidy last week. The decree was issued across 7 of the nation's 24 provinces following severe internal disturbances and mobilized armed forces and national police. The U.S. Embassy in Ecuador said in a statement that the forces were mobilized in order to prevent the interruption of public services and maintain freedom of movement for the general population. Right. The declaration does not restrict public movement or institute a curfew, but it does suspend the right to freedom of assembly at all times for any gatherings that seek to interrupt public services and impede the rights and liberties of the rest of the population, the embassy added. So that's the U.S. Embassy kind of defending the decision to institute the state of emergency. Oh, don't worry, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You can come here and you can still move around and stuff like that. Footage of the protest showed Ecuadorians clashing with police forces in the capital city of Quito on Tuesday as protesters dismantled fences and barriers while police fired tear gases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these clashes came after the government on Friday announced it would eliminate the nation's diesel subsidy starting Saturday and redirect the funds to social programs in an attempt to alleviate the country's straining finances. There you go, straining finances, right? Straining finances. Okay, so the population doesn't like what they're doing because they say, well, you can cut the budget just so as long as you don't cut my budget. All right, and then let's look at the Nepal Gen Z protests. These, of course, happened a few days ago, and I think we've talked about them a little bit already. There's a lot of sort of follow-up reporting on these protests because first of all, Nepal is a much more important country than you might suspect by its size because of its location between China and India, and also Russia is also involved in this area as well. So this young lady, I guess, is saying politicians get rich while we suffer, so I help bring down our government in 48 hours. And it was um, quite a violent protest by the young people, right? It's being called the Gen Z protest. And what is it? 72 people killed, right? So this was the deadliest unrest in Himalayan country in decades. Office buildings, residence of political leaders. Okay, we know that. So the protest represented a wholesale rejection of Nepal's current political class for decades of poor governance and exploitation of state resources, said a senior advisor at the International Crisis Group. But the damage to government services, he added, could parallel the toll of the 2015 earthquake, which took almost 9,000 lives. The destruction is not only confined to the capital, at least 300 local government offices across the nation have been damaged. The financial losses could amount to 3 trillion Nepalese rupees or $21.3 billion, nearly half of the country's GDP, according to the Kathmandu Post. It's off nearly half of the country's GDP. Okay? Its offices were also attacked. The newspaper offices were also attacked. So, and this idea of nepo babies, right? So, the children of upper class families, shall we say, or wealthy families, um, sort of showing off their wealth, which is probably not a good idea. Um, 2 days before the deadly demonstration on 8 September, a 24-year-old environmental campaigner uploaded a video showing a mining site in one of the most fragile mountain ranges in the region. Nepal's resources should belong to the people, not to politicians, private limited companies, she wrote, calling on her peers to march against corruption and the misuse of the nation's wealth. Like many youth movements in Asia, Nepal's Gen Z protests were leaderless. Others had made similar pleas after the Nepali government decided to ban 26 social media platforms, citing their failure to register locally. For months, fury had been brewing against Nepo babies, the children of powerful politicians of all stripes, who were accused of flaunting their unexplained wealth on social media. One of the most viral photos showed this one person, the son of a provincial minister, standing next to a Christmas tree made of boxes of luxury brands, including Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Cartier. In response, he said it was an unfair misinterpretation, and his father returned every rupee earned from public service to the community. And then Miss Pandey had watched almost all Nepo Babies content, but one video juxtaposing the luxurious life of a political family and an ordinary young Nepali who had to find work in a Gulf country struck her. It is painful to watch, especially knowing that even educated youth are forced to leave the country because wages here are far below what one needs to live with dignity, so forth and so on. And so um, this became a republic in 2008 after a decade-long Maoist-led civil war that killed more than 17,000 people. And they had a communist government, and the communist government was very much closely aligned with um, with CCP in China, and they were doing things like building a railroad from Tibet down into Nepal and through Nepal, um, and to be able to exploit the resources of Nepal. But now those projects are on hold, to say the least, to see what's going to happen there. All right, so those are the things that are going on there, and so forth. Um, all right, so let's look at what's going on here. Uh, uh, so much of the news these days is kind of repetitive. But let's see here. Oh, yes, there was one story that no, 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 no. Okay, we did that yesterday, didn't we? Okay. So let's look at Epic Times and see what they've got to say for themselves today. So right now, I guess we're at boy, another deadline to potentially shut down the government. At the that will be in what 11 days from now, at the end of September, so forth and so on. That's always a political theater. And let's see here. Jimmy Kimmel suspension, yeah, that he's right. And then National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk on his birthday, which just happens to be October 14th. I don't know. Does that mean anything? Okay, and then those 3-minute micro drama videos, you might be watching CCP propaganda, it says. Okay, they do a lot of propaganda, that is certainly for certain. Let's see here. Trump's National Guard deployment puts focus on violent crime in Memphis, etc. Radicalization of suspected. Okay, we did that yesterday. And how flawed jobs data influence Fed rate policy, and so all governments lie, and certainly we know that the statistics coming out of the U.S. government are also not completely accurate, to say the least, especially the inflation figures. But we saw recently that the uh, jobs numbers over the past well close to 1 year were downgrade or were estimated downward. The number was reduced by close to a million, right? 991,000, I think, like that. So what to do? What to do? And I don't know. The answer might be to let the free market determine interest rates. What do you say about that? It's I had a problem getting my mind around this as well, my head around this as well. But the natural state of a free market economy is that prices go down. And that makes sense when you think about it, because of competition, right? Producers are continually trying to find better ways to more efficient ways, cheaper ways to produce their goods because of competition. And also cheaper ways to package them, cheaper ways to transport them, and so forth and so on. So over time, you would expect that prices would go down. And in some cases, that's true. Computers, for example, right? There was a time, in the 1970s when basically only universities and government-funded institutions could afford a computer. And there was one computer on campus, and you had monitors around, in the library and in different buildings and so stuff like that. But there was one computer that took up the entire uh, one entire floor of the main administration building or something like that. But over time, as computers improved, the price of computers has come down drastically. So why is it then that we have to have inflation? Well, as I've explained before, it's because the government is the whole financial system actually is based on debt. And with debt, you have to have inflation so that the value of your debt is always decreasing and it's getting easier and easier to pay back because the biggest debtor of all is the government. So here we see that how flawed jobs data influence Fed rate policy. So if it's impossible to get an accurate idea of how many people have jobs this month as compared to last month and so on, why even do it? Why not just allow the free market to determine uh, Fed rates, the interest rates? We know that price controls always fail, right? And the most important price of all is the price of capital, which is interest rates. So here, a recent big revision to jobs data has cast doubt on the government's data collection methods and raised questions about the Fed's interest rate decisions. Yeah, data collection methods, and I would even add cast doubt on the appropriateness of government even trying to collect this data. uh, anyway, let's take a look at this. We'll see what they say. Accurate information on the jobs market and inflation is critical for U.S. policymakers. It's the core mission of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In recent years, the Bureau has faced scrutiny over claims that its jobs data may be unreliable and biased. Uh, President Trump fired the last head of the BLS because he thought that she was biased and that she was producing numbers that were favorable to the Democrat Party. And the pressure intensified on September 9th when the BLS issued its largest ever revision, retroactively lowering jobs growth by 911,000 for the 12 months that ended in March 2025. The Trump administration criticized the revision, which shows that the U.S. economy added nearly 76,000 fewer jobs per month than first reported, mostly under the Biden administration. And so this is the annual jobs revision for each year ending in March. So this is and so each year, almost every year, it gets revised downward, right? The one time that it was revised upward was when 2022. 2022. Who was president in 2022? Well, yeah, it was uh, Biden. Yeah, it was Biden. So he got an upward revision. Yeah. President Donald Trump was right. Biden's economy was a disaster and the BLS is broken, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said in a September 9 statement. On the same day, Trump posted on Truth Social, quoting Jay Hatfield, CEO of Infrastructure Capital Advisors, who told Fox Business the entire organization is broken and needs to be fixed. They need to use modern sources of information. Hatfield said that if the Fed had followed what we published, they would have raised rates in early 2021. The BLS plays an important role in shaping the Federal Reserve's monetary policies as its monthly reports on payroll growth, unemployment, and wages feed directly into the central bank's view of the labor market. Strong employment data can prompt the Fed to raise rates to rein in inflation, while weak numbers may lead to rate cuts aimed at stimulating economic growth. So, what this tells us is that basically the Fed is flying blind. They don't know what they're doing because the data they're using is unreliable, right? now this guy says that they need to use modern sources of information, but I think basically the whole idea of trying to raise this information, trying to collect this information, may be something that we need to look at. Because the decisions directly affect borrowing costs for households and businesses, from mortgages to and auto loans to business financing, the accuracy and credibility of BLS data are essential, according to experts. Problems in data not only risk misleading policymakers, but can also disrupt markets and impact economic activity. So basically, it leads to the misallocation of resources. Right? You're investing in one area where you should be investing in another area. The revisions are happening because the methods used by the BLS for estimating job growth are outdated, according to Sean Higgins, a research fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute specializing in labor and employment issues. It's mostly almost like an analog level system where they just send out surveys to businesses and wait till the surveys trickle back in, Higgins told the Epoch Times. BLS also has staff in the field who conduct statistical samples, he noted, visiting businesses to ask about payrolls and monthly performance. ask ask about payrolls. And so they're sending people out. Well, no wonder there's so many government employees. They got people walking around asking businesses, "Hey, how's it going this month?" "Oh, yeah, 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 it's going well." "Oh, okay, that's great." Uh, and here's the senior or chief economist of the Heritage Foundation saying, I care much less about these official numbers than I do about the American family standard of living and their costs of living." Okay? That's not necessarily bad information, but it is a sort of it is a sort of definitive number for the entire economy, he said. Trump began voicing his frustration with the BLS on August 1 when the agency announced that the U.S. economy added just 73,000 jobs in July, well below economists' expectations. The announcement also included downward revisions of 253,000 jobs for the months of May and June. Now, Trump suggested that the employment numbers were manipulated for political purposes. I was just informed that he said on Trump Social, and so he removed the head of BLS from her role and nominated a new guy, E.J. Antoni, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation and a longtime critic of the BLS. "I care much less, about the official numbers," it said. We already read that quote. "Don't pay so much attention to what the government is telling you the official numbers say. Pay more attention to your personal pocketbook, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters." Is how the BLS conducts surveys. So the BLS, in addition to labor statistics, also issues key inflation reports, including the Consumer Price Index and Producer Price Index. The agency collects data from both private and public entities and releases its monthly non-farm payroll report, formerly called the Employment Situation Summary, at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the first Friday of each month. The report is based on two major data sources, the Establishment Survey and the Household Survey. The Establishment Survey, or the Current Employment Statistics, provides data on employment, average weekly hours, and hourly earnings by sector. It is a survey of approximately 121,000 businesses and government agencies, tracking more than 630,000 non-farm work locations. So how well does this cover, sort of home offices and people sort of working out of their homes and stuff like that? I wonder. The monthly household survey. So that's the establishment survey. Okay, the monthly household survey, or the current population survey, interviews about 60,000 households to obtain information about the unemployment rate, labor force participation, and types of employment, such as full-time, part-time, and self-employed. Both surveys are conducted through a mix of telephone, email, and mail. Bureau officials then, I've never received an email or mail about this, or telephone for that matter. So how do they know whether I'm unemployed or not? No, they don't. Bureau officials then review the data to spot processing errors, clarify information, and report discrepancies. After the raw data is processed, the federal agency considers other factors, including seasonal hiring trends and adjustments. So, like I say, they're just picking numbers out of the air. Well, when you can really get down to it. The monthly report presents employment numbers for the prior month along with revisions to previously released job numbers. Higgins explained that delays in receiving survey data and other adjustments are slowing down the process. Hence, people have good reason to wonder if the monthly numbers are accurate and reliable, he said. Still, he believes that the revisions are not politically motivated. He said collecting the monthly data is a staggeringly difficult job. A lot of companies just simply go out of business and new ones emerge, and keeping track of that and adjusting for that factor is very difficult, Higgins said. And there are also non-traditional jobs in the gig economy, such as driving for Uber or Lyft, he noted. That's right. Not just well, that's an example. Driving for Uber is an example, but it's not the only one. While substantial discrepancies have appeared periodically over the years, the most significant and persistent revisions that garnered widespread attention began during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. At the onset of the pandemic, the BLS reported enormous volatility in the employment data due to massive job losses followed by swift rebounds. Many initial figures were later revised as delayed survey responses from businesses gradually arrived, reflecting the challenges of capturing real-time labor market shifts during a period of economic upheaval. So the Bureau publishes the annual preliminary benchmark revisions, right? So then they change the benchmarks as well. Well, so is it really valuable to have this kind of inaccurate data? And we say, well, the Fed relies on it. Okay, then let's look at whether we actually need the Fed. So the Fed is making policy decisions based on what they must also certainly realize is flawed data. So the decisions that they make also have to be flawed. And by the way, Jerome Powell is not even an economist, he's a lawyer, and he's never run a business. So I don't know. It seems to me that the whole system is very, very flawed. And the flaws are not coming out. Because if you're running a flawed system, eventually uh, it's going to break down. And that seems to be exactly what is happening, not just in the United States, but also around the world, where all these governments are just printing money and sort of and doing, or either printing money or doing austerity measures and causing social disruption in many countries. Uh, Seems that things are coming to a head right now. Right. And that's not surprising, as I said, because internally also Providence is coming to a very sort of a watershed moment, probably, where it is possible that Hak Ja Han, along with her uh, chief secretary, will be placed in government custody on Monday, in just a few days. So we'll see what happens. But always internal and external are related, and we can see that to definitely what is going on. You know, uh, Jesse Edwards has put out this call to save Mother Han, and also Newt Gingrich. Also, who else? Uh, what is it? The Pompeo also put out a statement and stuff like that. If these people had spoken up back in late 2012 and early 2013, it would have been much better, because that is when Hak Ja Han actually needed to be saved. And that is when the second king was actually pleading with her and begging her not to go down the road of destruction. But now that she's come to the natural consequence of her choice, of her actions, of her betrayal, now people start to say, "Oh, let's save her, let's save her." But it's kind of late, kind of late. It's actually very, very late. People should have been speaking up back then when she was in the process of betraying father, because actions have consequences, and now she's facing those consequences, and those consequences are not just internal, but also being reflected in the external society as well, right? Uh, and President Trump, though, is dealing with that situation pretty forcefully, um, and uh, he's going beyond the normal actions of a president, you might say. And some people are saying that we're living in a sort of an autocratic situation in the United States right now. But there are times when that is what is required um, to save the country. And so we will see where this all leads. I know there are excesses going on. As I've said, I would not myself, I would not be expelling people who are paying taxes. I would allow them to stay, but with the caveat that they cannot um, they cannot become a citizen, because citizenship is only reserved for people who go through the legal process. Let me plug this in right here. Only go through people who go through the legal process. That's one. Second is that they cannot invite their relatives, and in other words, their mothers and fathers and children and brothers and sisters and so forth like that. They cannot invite those people. No sponsorship like that. And the third is that they don't commit a serious felony. I think people being expelled because of uh, traffic violations, I think, is excessive, especially when it's someone who owns a business or and is employing Americans or is uh, contributing taxes. Right now, frankly, the United States needs people to be paying taxes. So I don't understand it. But they say, oh, well, these jobs are being taken away from Americans. Well, I wouldn't be so sure about that. I don't think it's a zero-sum game like that. Businesses beget other businesses, because every business that comes into existence then has to have other business providing it with various goods and services. So businesses create other businesses or help other businesses grow every time a business is created. So just to say that, well, if this pizza shop had not been created by this illegal immigrant, then it would have been created by an American. Well, I don't really buy that kind of zero sum logic at all. Maybe the American could have should have created a better tasting pizza or in a better location or something like that, or with a better a price point or something like that. So I don't agree with that saying that, oh, even if they're operating businesses, they need to be expelled so that an American can operate that business. I don't agree with that. But anyway, that's what President Trump is doing right now. He's not doing what I would do, but he's doing what he thinks is right, and we'll see where it leads. But as I say, we've got to keep our eye on the ball, keep our eye on the ball, and the ball that we keep our eye on, of course, is the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so let's just before we go see what's happening in China. Okay, I've been seeing something about China's banks. Okay. Um, I don't see anything particular going on. All right. Well, let's see what's happening. But China is, we know, in a long-term deflation situation, which is bad for a country that has a very large debt. Uh, and That's the situation that China is facing right now. It's becoming more and more difficult for them to repay that debt. and it's becoming more and more difficult for them to continue to grow their economy because in a deflationary situation, people are more apt to save than to spend. Right? Uh, in a debt-based economy, the government is always encouraging people to spend, 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 spend. And inflation, people are encouraged to spend because their money is getting worth less and less as time goes on. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the headlines on Breitbart before we go. Let's see here. Okay, stuff about okay, some stuff going on here. Kimmel. A lot of this domestic stuff does not interest me so much. Hockey player involved in Adam Johnson death signs with NHL minor league. Okay. I'm laughing at this one. California lawyer punished for using AI that cited fake cases. Glad he was caught. And here, Erica Kirk, appointed to head of Turning Point USA. So forth and so on. All right. So a lot of stuff going on, but these are all sort of small points, small dots. This is what a nuclear attack from a Russian submarine could look like. President Trump is saying that he's frustrated with Vladimir Putin and that the let's see, hold on a second. I am not able to walk and chew gum at the same time, I'm afraid. I have to do one or the other. See, Trump. Okay. Right, here we go. This is the one I was thinking of. Okay. Trump warns of World War III as he calls out Putin during alarming speech in UK. The American president made the comments today during a press conference with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Donald Trump hinted at the possibility of World War III during a press conference alongside UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer today, Thursday, 18 September. Speaking from Chequers amid his ongoing state visit, the US president called out Vladimir Putin and said he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people and he's losing more people than that he's killing. The Republican leader added, I mean, frankly, Russian soldiers are being killed at a higher rate than Ukrainian soldiers, but yeah, he's let me down. If I were president, it would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Most people agree. It didn't happen, nor was it close to happening. He's referring, of course, to the 4 years of his first term. Trump continued, I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. I've said that many times it was, but he would have never done what he did except that he didn't respect the leadership of the United States. And here, uh, is this Starmer? Yeah, this is Starmer talking. There's no one silver bullet here. We do have a wider suite of sanctions, which we've put in place a number of times, working across Europe and with the United States. Okay. But President Trump seems to be concerned that this situation is going to get worse, and that something drastic will have to be done in order to prevent World War III. It seems to be his growing anxiety. So, what would that be? What would that be? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Right? We'll have to wait and see. Um, and if it does spark World War III, then what does that involve? Consequences there are pretty terrible to contemplate in terms of the worst case scenario. But so we are at a watershed moment. Also, it seems in Ukraine, and we'll see where that lands. I tell you, it's not Hakchahan that needs to be saved right now. It is the 8 billion people of the world right now. Um, she will suffer the consequences of her actions, but the 8 billion people of the world need to be somehow saved from the consequences of her actions. All right, so that's it for today. I'll see